if you're a Marlins fan and you're watching this, and there's a percentage of you who are, do you think when they moved Jazz Chisholm from center field back to second base that there was some thought that they were going to trade Jazz Chisholm? Because there were some rumors put out by some baseball insiders that there's certain teams interested in an infielder, and that infielder could be Jazz Chisholm, whether it's the Mariners or the Yankees or any other team. Do you think that Peter Bendix, the GM, president of baseball ops of the Marlins, walked into Skip Schumacher, the manager's office, and said, Jazz has been playing center field for a couple of years. Let's remind him about infield. Well, Peter used to play shortstop. Yeah, I know, but let's put him at second base. Do you think it's a coincidence that there's second base openings for a couple of buying teams in the playoff run? Do you know what I never did? I never made it so damn obvious what I was doing. May have done a little bait and switch when it came to player moves. But moving Jazz to play, here's what opposing team scouts are doing. They're at the Marlins game. They're sitting at Marlins Park, and they're looking out, and they're saying, Jazz can play second base. Let's acquire him. I totally forgot. It didn't even occur to me. Thank God the Marlins put him there, because otherwise it wouldn't have mattered. I would have assumed it was only an outfielder. What did the Marlins think, that the rest of the teams are stupid? We know what position players can play. And sometimes we don't care whether they can play it. We called up Miguel Cabrera, one of the great prospects of all time, Hall of Famer, first balloter. You know how many games he had played at left field when he became our starting left fielder in June of 2003? I think it was 1. We were just like, hey, can you catch a fly ball without having it hit you in the face? All right, thank you. You're a big leaguer. You think the Mariners are scouting and looking and saying, "Ooh, look at that fancy footwork around second base during that DP. Let's acquire Jazz." It's literally preposterous. Can't stand it. One of the hardest things I ever had to decide is when to trade a player. I always would trade too late versus too early. I mean, the Miguel Cabrera trade doesn't count. When you have to make a trade, you have to make a trade. But I'm talking about like Tarik Skubal. You watched him, that Tigers pitcher. You may have watched him during the All-Star game. If you haven't watched him, he's really good. The Tigers have had a problem because they signed Miguel Cabrera to that extension. Dave Dombrowski signed him to an extension when he didn't need to. I'm glad Miguel got the money from Illich. I really would like Miguel to make as much money as he wants. But that contract really did hamstring the Tigers. AJ Hinch, their manager, erstwhile the Astros, is trying to rebuild and get some wins for Detroit. So he and Scott Harris have to think to themselves, what are we going to do with this asset? One of the problems with the deadline that is under the kimono that Coca gets upset when I bring you is that nowhere in the front office are the discussions being had. Tarik's a really good guy. He's got a family. His kids are in school. I think he's got a place in Detroit. God, maybe we shouldn't trade him. I mean, it's so upsetting to trade a guy in the middle of a season. It can really be tough. Sorry, folks. Park's closed. It just doesn't happen that way. Never. What matters is what we put on our board, which is how many years are left until the player is gone. How many years are left until the player gets paid in arbitration? We have a list of players, what their service time is. Tarik has 2 years of arbitration eligibility left. This is how you maximize his value in the trade market, with 2 years before free agency, because what that means is you're going to get a much bigger haul in prospects when you trade him, or in value between prospects and big league ready players, or already big league players, because Tarik, as you know, is a performing big leaguer. But then you're giving away 2 years of performance that he could give you in Detroit versus another team. So what you have to do if you're Detroit is say, are we competing? Can we compete? What does our team look like next year? Dear Mr. Illich, can you please just tell me whether or not our payroll is going up? Is it going down? For all of you who think that President Scott Harris had the quote of the year by saying, hey, it's highly doubtful that he's going to be moved, but then a source said everything has a price. That's a lot of the next 12 days. You call up a team and do a little sniper action. Hey, can we get Skubal? I think the A's are being sniped right now with Mason Miller. He's their closer. He's got, what does he have, 4 years before free agency, 5 years before free agency? He's a kid. You saw him pitch during the All-Star game. If you haven't watched him play, he was the winning pitcher. He puts the N in nasty, the D in dirty, and the T in tradable. The A's think they're going to open a new ballpark in 2028, NGTH. He is a kid. He's 26 years old. He's a kid, Coca. I mean, he's not 19, but we wouldn't talk about 19-year-olds the way we talk about Mason Miller. Mason Miller is a performing bullpen arm. I'm asking about his years of service. How long until he's a free agent? My guess is 5 years. 5 years is 2029. The A's, if they were being honest with you, would say that's probably the year a stadium will open, if that. So this guy could be the centerpiece of our new stadium. Nope. Well, we have to have a good team as we're building a stadium. No. Well, we want to build to a really good team when we open the stadium. Yes. A pitcher with 0+ experience who is a closer like Mason Miller is not going to be the anchor of a team in a new ballpark. There is no scenario under which that happens. You don't want, no matter if you are the Vegas A's, the Sacramento A's, the Oakland A's, I don't care what A's you are, having a $20 to $30 million closer, which would be, if he's the best of the best the way he is now, you're not going to be able to build a good enough team around that. Therefore, if you know that Mason Miller is not going to be your closer of the future, then make him your closer of the past. Maximize the value. You want to talk about 2 years of free agency left when you've got 5 years until free agency. What teams would give to get Mason Miller, it'll knock your socks off. And by getting the prospect package back that the A's would get, those are the players who will be pre-arbitration in this purported new ballpark, performing at the big league level. That's how you win rings. It would be foolish for the A's to not trade Mason Miller. He will never be worth more than he is today, ever.